Hi, everyone. Steve Adubato. We kick off the program with an important conversation with the United States Representative Congressman Rob Menendez of the 8th Congressional District. Congressman, good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me. Great to be with you, Steve.
You got it. Hey, listen, I know you were just running from a vote. I'm not going to ask you what that vote was on because this will air a little bit later. But the big, beautiful bill, by the way, do you call it that?
I do not.
I don't either. It's a budget bill, correct?
Yeah, it's
with
correct.
a lot of stuff in it.
Mm-hmm.
Of all the stuff in that bill, Congressman, what's your greatest concern?
The cuts to Medicaid, that's going to impact a lot of New Jerseyans. Congressman Pallone and I are the two Democrats on Energy and Commerce. The Republicans tasked the committee with $880 billion in cuts, and that was primarily focused on Medicaid. So the two parts that I'm most concerned about are in terms of how those cuts to Medicaid are going to impact all New Jerseyans, not just those that rely on Medicaid, which in New Jersey is NJ Family Care, but for everyone in our healthcare ecosystem. So the people who are on Medicaid now could potentially lose coverage on Medicaid. As you know, this is an important program for so many New Jerseyans, from children, pregnant mothers, seniors, people with long-term disabilities. So I'm worried about them getting caught up in the red tape that the Republicans have added to the Medicaid program. I'm worried about a lot of our safety net hospitals. We have 3 of them in Hudson County because more people are going to show up there for their primary health care because they no longer have health care coverage through Medicaid. That's going to make the system more expensive. And once the system's more expensive, that means that premiums are going to go up for New Jerseyans. There's going to be really bad healthcare outcomes for so many of our friends and neighbors. And that's the thing that really troubles me with this bill.
What about the part of the bill that extends the Trump tax cuts on the wealthiest Americans that happened in 2017? It extends those tax benefits. And this legislation does that. Do you believe that that's being done largely by making cuts in other places, Congressman?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they tried to make this as deficit neutral as they could.
What does that mean, deficit neutral?
Sure.
You don't add to the debt or the deficit?
Federal government's simple, right? There's money in terms of how you raise revenue through taxes. So if you have tax cuts, that means you have less revenue in. If you want to offset that, right, then you have to reduce federal spending. And that's why you saw a huge cut to Medicaid, to SNAP. Those are big federal programs.
Go back to SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, otherwise before that known as food stamps. There are some people who we've interviewed, some right-leaning conservative folks who said, listen, it's no big deal. That doesn't really impact people. And I said, there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in New Jersey who rely on SNAP. What is the real impact?
The real impact is that people who rely on the program, who are living largely paycheck to paycheck, are going to have less assistance to put food on their families' tables. That's going to impact the nutrition of children, of adolescents, of seniors, right? So we know there's an affordability challenge across the country and especially in New Jersey. And a lot of families, a lot of individuals are doing everything that they can every single day to make it work. The government in certain places tries to help, and SNAP is one of those places to make sure that people don't go hungry. Cutting SNAP, which is just cents and dollars on the day, right? This is not something like a huge payout like you mentioned to the tax cuts to the most wealthy amongst us who are going to see tens of thousands of dollars in returns every year. This is dollars a month that go and help people who are doing everything that they can to make ends meet, and it's going to impact their bottom line, especially as we continue to see grocery prices increase. So I would disagree with anyone that says this will not have an impact on our neighbors here in New Jersey, and it's going to be a problem for a lot of individuals and families.
Switch gears, immigration.
Yeah.
You have one of the largest immigrant populations in your district, based largely in Hudson County, fair, Congressman?
That's correct.
Okay. You were there with Newark Mayor Ras Baraka, with your colleague, or 2 of your colleagues, Bonnie Watson-Coleman from the central part of the state, Congresswoman MacIver in Newark. You were right there in that scrum with the mayor and your 2 colleagues and those ICE agents at Delaney Hall in Newark. Describe that scene for us.
Yeah, it's something that I never envisioned experiencing in my life. You know, Congresswoman Watson-Coleman and MacIver, we've done these types of oversight visits previously to the Elizabeth Detention Center. There's something that we are allowed to do and have a right to do under law. We've done it previously with no issue. When Delaney Hall opened, we wanted to make sure that we, again, conducted oversight at the facility. And every step of the way, we were met with resistance. Ultimately, the scene that you alluded to was something that was an escalation by DHS, by ICE. There were over 20 armed, masked, unidentified ICE, HSI agents there to engage with the mayor of Newark, the mayor of the largest city in New Jersey.
HSI is Homeland Security?
Investigations, that's correct.
Okay.
And all sit under DHS. And so you had four elected individuals, again, the mayor of the largest city in New Jersey and 3 members of Congress, and they showed up with 20 armed individuals to engage with us, and specifically with the mayor. And there was no need for that. We had gone in, we obviously were allowed in because we have a right to be there. The mayor had been allowed in, which is why the U.S. attorney for New Jersey dropped the case against him. And what they chose to do...
Alina Habba,
exactly
who
right.
is, as we speak, acting, but go ahead.
Correct, and had been Trump's personal attorney. And what I saw that day was in my opinion, something that should concern all Americans. Now, we can have disagreements about immigration, but the fact that the federal government felt like they could put their hands on 2 female members of Congress, that they could get into a physical altercation like that, and try to intimidate 3 members of Congress and the mayor of New Jersey's largest city, and do so without consequence, without fear, to me shows that in Trump's America, no one should really feel safe. You saw this with Senator Padilla in California. There are going to be more and more instances of this where
when Senator Padilla was wrestled to the ground by ICE agents, as I believe he attempted to ask a question of Kristi Noem, is it?
Yeah, Secretary Noem, that's correct.
Okay, what do you think this is all indicative of, Congressman?
The executive branch wants to go unchecked. The president wants to go unchecked. You've seen an attack on federal judges, which, as you know, is a very sensitive thing in New Jersey, where we saw a couple of years ago what happened to Judge Salas's family. We should have separation of powers. We should have checks and balances. That's what this country, what our Constitution is founded on. And this administration, this president, doesn't want to feel bound by those separation of powers, by those checks and balances. They want, and he wants, complete authority. The people around him want to try to create complete authority for him. That is a very dangerous thing for all Americans.
Congressman, put up the graphic right now for a mini-series we've been doing for a while now called Democracy in Danger. Here's the question that I keep wondering about. President Trump has a tremendous amount of support in this country, including on immigration. Now, you can debate the tactics and the process, but a vast majority of Americans do not believe that those who are here illegally deserve due process, that the president's not overstepping. The Supreme Court has consistently, as we speak, we actually have an interview coming up with a professor at Seton Hall Law School on this. The Supreme Court has backed him up. So what has he done, adjudicated by the courts or by Congress, pushed back on Congress, that's been determined to be unconstitutional?
Well, one, and it's a complicated question to ask because you are right. His conservative Supreme Court has largely ruled in his favor.
They said it's okay, Mr. President.
But I think what's important is what he told the American people, and what he told a lot of people, including in the Hispanic community, was that he was only going to go after criminals. And what we have seen day after day from the beginning of his administration to present day is that was a lie to the American people and to a lot of people who support him. They thought if there are people here that are here illegally and who have criminal records or violent criminals, they need to be removed from the country. That is something that there's bipartisan support for. But when you go and you start ripping communities apart, when you go and you start ripping families apart, and as you know, in New Jersey, we have a lot of mixed status families. It's now progressed to the fact where Tom Homan is saying that they can basically racially profile across the country that if someone looks to be Hispanic, they can be apprehended by ICE. That's a problem. And I think most Americans know intuitively.
Said that the president's lead appointee, as it relates to this mass deportation effort, he said what about people who look Hispanic?
Basically, that ICE has the right to racially profile in this country. And we can get you the exact quote on that, but it was said within the last week. And that is a problem. And if you look at what's happening in our communities, you know that that's how they are engaging, right? Because targeted encounters with people with criminal records is one thing. Mass raids, mass sweeping of Home Depots, mass sweeping of public spaces, including sensitive locations, in my opinion, it's not what the American people signed up for. And you see in a lot of polling that the president is losing ground on immigration because this is not the version of immigration enforcement that people signed up for.
Congressman, shift gears dramatically. We're also part of an initiative called the First 1,000 Days. What is it about? It's about childcare, from a woman becoming pregnant to her baby being 2 years of age. Those first 1,000 days, affordable, accessible, quality childcare. You've talked about the child tax credit. Explain to folks what that tax credit is and how it relates to childcare.
Sure. So one, let me just touch on this critically important issue that you raised. If we want to have healthy Americans, it starts with the pregnancy. It extends through those first 3 years, 2 to 3 years. We know that if the mother and the child have access to health care, you get better health outcomes. If the child and the mother have access to healthy food and nutrition and medicine, those are better health outcomes for both the mother and the child. And we can give every American a strong foundation. It's something that we should all be in complete agreement on. With respect to the child tax credit, what we saw was several years ago, the child tax credit was money that went directly back to families with children, and it lifted over 50% of children out of poverty. We know that too often that a child's academic and health outcomes are tied to their family's income. So if we can put money back in a family's pocket, right, we know as a parent, I have 2 young children, that we're going to invest that in our children. Either it gives us the ability to have a stable place to live, which is an important thing for the health of any individual. It's the opportunity to make sure that their children are well fed. If they're between the ages of 0 and 2, that they have access to formula, to diapers, all of those things. And we saw a dramatic impact of giving families money back, tax credit, right? And what we saw in the outcome when we had the full child tax credit was over half of children being raised out of poverty. That's an incredible thing and shows what we can do here at the federal level to make sure that we're raising a healthy generation of Americans.
Before I let you go, I'm sure there's some people that would expect me to ask this, but I've known your dad for many years. When I was running for the state legislature as a very young man, he was very supportive of me. I've interviewed him more times than either one of us want to admit. Anything that you would want to say to the public about your dad as a father and as a grandfather?
You know, I would say it's a challenging time for our family. There's no hiding from that. But what I would say is every family has a series of challenges that they have to navigate. I know that individuals have hardships every single day, and that's something that we're dealing with as a family. I made sure that the last several weeks he could spend time with my kids to ensure that he had those precious moments with them. It's something that makes me, sad that I know that he won't have a lot of those moments moving forward. But we do what every family does. We navigate forward. We deal with the bad situation that we have to, and we move forward. And like so many families, that's what we'll do, and we'll figure it out.
Congressman, to you and your family, including your sister, who is a great broadcaster over at MSNBC, we wish you and your family all the best. Thank you, Congressman.
Thanks so much, Steve. I appreciate it.
You got it. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Think Tank with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by the Turrell Fund, a foundation serving children, New Jersey Sharing Network, Kane University, RWJ Barnabas Health. Let's be healthy together. The New Jersey Education Association, New Jersey's Clean Energy Program, Valley Bank, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, and by the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. Promotional support provided by Meadowlands Media and by NJ Biz.
How long you been waiting?
About a half hour.
Brutal. This keeps up, I'm gonna miss my pickleball game.
I've been waiting 8 years for a kidney. What can you do?
Over 100,000 people in the U.S. are waiting for a life-saving transplant. But you can do your part in an instant. Register as an organ donor today at njsn.org.